Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Neon Crew podcast. I'm Kyle.
Hey, everyone, and I'm McClain.
Hey.
Or Mac.
McClain, using your government name. Wow.
The real MVP.
Yeah. Usually you go by Mac. Mac Daddy. Mac and cheese.
M with the C, no K.
What's your middle name?
I'm not throwing that's public dissemination.
Okay. No worries.
No, I'm just joking. I hold that one. That's a nice little conversation for me. Because
Okay.
you hit someone with, like, your name's McClain. Oh, wow, what's your last name? Parker. And then we get into the, wow, 2 first names, 2 last names ordeal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the middle name? And that's when I can have, like, a, fun time with it.
You are someone who does have, like, 2 last names.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally you meet someone and they have 2 first names.
I went to, and everyone's gonna get a kick out of this, but I'm doing like a rec league soccer thing. Never played soccer in my life, but it's with buddies. We have a good time doing it. So first game today, but I went to do the registration, and the lady's like, "All right, name, McClain. Okay, first name, McClain." Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens to you quite often.
Doctor's offices. I've gotten to the point where I just have to, like, lean into them messing up because everyone acts like they have yolk all over their face, and it's like, it's not your fault. I mean, I get it all the time. So.
Usually if someone messes up my name in a way, it's because I'm at the Burger King drive-thru and
they call you Stanley.
They'll ask me what my name is for the order, and I tell them Kyle, and then they'll either spell it wrong or they'll use a completely different name altogether. Really? Like one time I went and they misheard me. They asked me what my name was. I said Kyle, and I pull up to the window and they're like, Miles? And I'm like, no, Kyle. And they were like, you got a double cheeseburger, right? And I'm like, yep. And they're like, okay, Miles, here you go. I'm like, yeah, I guess my name is Miles now.
That's
cool.
The one, it's funny getting with watching these films that we're about to talk about too, seeing just small things like that, but that's a small battle that you really don't have to win.
No.
I'd already say, like, you're kind of ahead of the game, not being the one handing over the food, but
yeah, small potatoes for a large fry.
Yeah.
So to speak.
So that's the one. And it's funny. I got McDonald's after the game on Friday because I was kind of just gonna wallow. Mm-hmm. And I sat in there and they were taking forever, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, God, like, what happened to fast food? It used to be a lot quicker, back in high school. And then I kind of had maybe time was like when you're in high school, everything's going by so fast that even when people took forever, it still felt fast because, you're still catching up to the world.
Yeah. And
then I did, it could be a lot worse. I could be the one at that cash register at, 11:30 at night handing over the food, So I was like, all right, I understand what's going on. They probably don't want to be there either.
Yeah, time is going painfully slow for them as well.
Oh yeah, so
because they're in hell.
Yeah,
the hell known as capitalism.
True.
So anyway, we're gonna talk about 3 movies, all written by Charlie Kaufman. Adaptation, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But first, I have to make a episode correction for last episode.
What?
Yep.
Dude, mirror you.
We screwed the pooch on this one.
Both?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's pretty minor, but it's worth addressing, I would say.
Okay.
So you remember the news story about Alec Baldwin accidentally shooting that person on that movie set?
It was an accident, right? That's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It really has nothing to do with that particular story, but we were comparing it to Brandon Lee and how he died, and how we were saying how the actor who shot him still has, nightmares about it to this day.
Yeah. Yep.
That actor's definitely not having nightmares about it to this day because he passed away in 2016.
Oh.
So, just a little minor hiccup that we had, but the actor Michael Massey passed away in 2016, and we definitely made it sound like that he was still struggling in this current time.
Sure. So, yeah, probably was still struggling in 2016.
Yeah, I'm sure he was having a go with it up until the end of his life, but
yeah,
we definitely made it sound like he was amongst the living when we were talking about him.
It's a good correction. I think someone else that listened to one of the episodes was talking to me about it, and I think they were using adjectives, or not adjectives, but English stuff. Did.
Past tense.
Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, man. You know, like, and then I just was like, is this like hey, dude, he's not here? I kind of figured it was, but I didn't address it.
Yeah. I think I thought about going back and like inserting my own voice saying redacted or something just to make it work.
This isn't going to the Library of Congress. We're all right.
You don't. Yeah, it's
true.
Not
yet, at least.
Not yet.
Not until you tell your friends and their friends tell their friends.
We're shooting for the stars, the Star-Spangled Banner. That is
sick.
So yeah, I just had to make that quick correction before we moved on any further.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So like I said before, we're going to be talking about 3 movies, so we're pretty much going to get into discussions almost right away. But you had an idea for starting off this series of talks, where we each go through 3 of the movies that we watched and kind of rank them from what we enjoyed the most to what we enjoyed the least.
I would say, I mean, just one.
Kind of like compare.
However you want to, however your rank goes. My rank's probably going to be rewatchability.
Okay.
All right. Maybe ones. I mean, there are definitely from each film takeaways. So I was just thinking it'd be kind of fun just to see where we stood at with these films. All right. And there is there's overlapping themes, but there's certain like contrasts between each film.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think it's important to note, too, that each film is directed by somebody different. So Adaptation was Spike Jonze.
Yeah.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was Michael Gondry. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Forgive me, Michael, if you're listening.
Shout out.
And then I'm Thinking of Ending Things was directed by Charlie Kaufman himself.
Yeah, it's not. I'm thinking more so of the writing.
Mm-hmm.
Just I mean, I think from what I understand, and it's probably very simplistic, is just that the director takes the screenplay from the writer and then pretty much just like gouges it until there's nothing left of what the guy originally wanted. That's how I think from what I've heard.
Yeah, I think in Charlie Kaufman's case, he has a pretty good threshold, or I guess that's not the right word. What word do I want to use? He has a pretty good sway into what goes into the movies that he writes.
Think so. I mean, from watching these films, I would have to imagine that he doesn't, even being John Malkovich, I think is the one that put him on the map, from what I remember looking at. And even that one's kind of meta.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that when someone takes his screenplay, they're going to be like, we're using your words because it's probably a little too heady for what I could direct. So the only reason why I say it too, I was about to say Kubrick directed Spartacus.
Yeah.
And who is that?
I could not tell you. I can
you look it up.
I'm on Wikipedia. I got it at the ready.
They made a movie with Cranston played the writer. The guy got blacklisted, being labeled a communist in Hollywood.
I think I know what movie you're talking about that Cranston was in.
Yeah, if you could, because we will stumble over our words.
Dalton Trumbo.
Yes,
and the movie I think was just called Trumbo.
It was. That's what I was trying to remember. Anyways, there was a leaked, or there's maybe like a editor's cut of Spartacus with Trumbo watching what was being directed compared to what he wrote, and from the little bit I heard, it's like 5 minutes of pure gold because he pretty much watches it and then he sees that Kubrick, took everything and just pushed it off to the side, wanted to do his own thing.
Yeah.
So he used like the bones, and you got 2 smart guys going at it. So Dalton was watching like the editing process and just like ripping into Kubrick, the actors, what was wrong with it, why it wasn't going with it. So anyways, and so I was making the joke about writers with the directors, because I definitely think there are times where there's probably a butting of the heads. But Kaufman films, I don't feel like that happens
No, he's a pretty prolific writer in terms of Hollywood.
Yeah,
he can usually, for the most part, get a movie where he wants it to go if he's not the director.
I would agree. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can each go into our rankings. I'm probably gonna more so go in terms of like what I enjoyed the most.
Yeah. However, I just want to see because it's probably gonna be in rewatchability. Probably falls under that.
Okay.
Maybe not because you might have enjoyed one of them. Like I'm never gonna watch it again, but it made me think the most. So that's kind of what I'm curious about.
I think there's a correlation, but I guess I can go into mine first, and then
sure
you'll go into yours, and we can kind of bounce off each other before we get into the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah.
So for me, I think my favorite out of all the three would be I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
That's your number one?
That's my number one.
All right.
And then my number two would probably be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Wow.
And then number three is Adaptation.
We're the exact opposite.
Really?
Number two falls into place.
Okay.
Number two, so
Eternal, so we have the same number two.
Yeah, but Adaptation was number one for me, and I'm Thinking of Ending Things was number three.
Ooh.
But
okay.
I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I did like I watched it, and it made me think, try to pick the pieces on what Kaufman's trying to say, or so that's where that's what I was kind of thinking that we were gonna fall into that because. And we can talk about it. Do you want to go into Adaptation first?
Yeah, I figured we'd start with Adaptation, right? And then go into I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
What if we go with Eternal first, since we both agree with it at number two?
We could.
And then we'll do Adaptation, and then I'm Thinking of Ending Things has the most stuff going on it.
Okay.
And Eternal, I think we're both going to have the same viewpoints on it, so I don't want to.
Okay.
And that's we both agree on it.
All right. Yeah, let's start with Eternal. So I guess I'll give a quick synopsis for that one since it was my recommendation. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, directed by Michael Gondry, screenplay by Charlie Kaufman, is about a guy named Joel in his, I would say mid-30s or so, played by Jim Carrey, who meets a girl played by Kate Winslet, Clementine, and the two of them fall in love. They form a relationship, and then all of a sudden the relationship ends in a very nasty, brutal way. Joel finds out that Clementine went to go seek the services of a place that basically erases certain aspects of your memory. So a lot of people use it for relationships. People will use it for pets that have passed away, life experiences that they don't want to remember at all. So he finds out that she went to that place so that she could forget about him, and then he decides to do the same thing. And then the movie plays out basically from the point of view of his head, where he is trying to decide in his inner machinations whether or not he wants to go through with this procedure or if he wants to try and find a way to preserve the memories that he has, even if some of them are more painful than others.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's pretty much the movie, I guess, without spoiling it. So I guess we're just gonna dive right into it.
So I've seen this one before. I think we both talked about that. We've both seen this.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it a while ago. I was in college. I was getting more into films and whatnot. And this I think came out in 2004.
Yep.
So it'd been around for a couple years, and I finally was like, I gotta watch it. Jim Carrey in a serious role. It never really sparked my attention, and then it is. A really, it's quirky, it's a little cheeky.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's lovely, very beautiful.
Yeah.
And the reason why I figured we both settle on it because it's hard to watch this film and absolutely hate it.
Yes,
I think that there are aspects within the film that anyone that's ever been in a relationship can definitely relate to.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that specific thing right there.
Yeah.
That have been in a relationship, because when I first watched the movie, I was in high school and I hadn't been in a relationship yet at that point.
Right.
So when I watched it in high school, which I'm kind of glad I did because now I have different perspectives of it. When I watched it in high school, I thought the movie was good, but I didn't really appreciate what the movie was at the time because I had never had that life experience before. Now that I've watched it again for the second time, I'm 26, going to be 27 in December. Shout out to Age.
There we go.
Yeah.
How about that? Where's the Soch number at? When you dropping that one next?
Please. Yeah, I'm getting older. Time passes by us all.
Deep.
Yeah, thinking of ending things. But now that I've watched it and I've had that sort of, not the same life experience, but something I would say that makes me appreciate the movie more, I can definitely find a better enjoyment from it.
Yeah.
And certain moments in that movie connect with you. You know, that scene where he's in the beginning, like right after the breakup, where he's like driving in the car, like bawling his eyes out.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's something that like hit me like a ton of bricks, because, you know, I've been there before.
100%.
I've been in his same exact position before. I guess not same exact, you know, there's no shadow doctor that can erase your mind, but something super close to it.
Well, dude, there's a lot of money out there, and there are things that we don't know about.
That's true. Like, you could be sleeping right now and Mark Ruffalo might be ruffling your jimmies.
Whoa.
And you wouldn't even know it.
By the way, too, though, how about that place? Corner, it looked like a chiropractor's office.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're talking about, hey, we're going to erase your mind. We're doing this.
It's not like this big old prestigious mansion that is like tucked away, or it's like literally on the street.
Handing out business cards.
Yeah.
And not even like good ones.
No, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say back alley, but it almost seems like an amateur type thing.
It was, I mean, there's I know a couple places where there's like outpatient stuff or, services. And this just felt like a dentist's office with a local guy in a small town.
Yeah.
That, we get by because we crown a couple teeth every month, and it's just, we don't live on pennies, but we're not like well off.
Yeah.
So it's funny when he goes in there, because it's like, there's a couple seats, they can probably fit like 5 people in the office. And then you go through there, it's narrow corridors. They got 3-4 employees with the doctor, and the guy's obviously knows what he's doing, but you'd think erasing your memory, it would kind of be like, hey, this is going to cost like maybe $2,500, per hour or something like that.
Insurance doesn't cover this.
Yeah. And he goes in there and it's just, hey, we'll hook you up. I thought that was really funny to me when I rewatched it, seeing that office, thinking like, this is kind of heavy what they're doing to people. And it's just, hey, up the stairs, it's sweet B.
It's kind of like this quaint little space that they have.
Yeah.
It almost, like you said, it almost feels like you're going to the chiropractor. I wouldn't even say dentist, because I feel like a dentist is more of a a strict and firm sort of routine. Chiropractor, you just walk in and be like, hey, can I get this done?
Yep. My back's feeling a little tight. Like, yep, we'll get you taken care of.
Right. But yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that specific aspect to it, because it's just something entirely like meant to focus on the characters themselves. They kind of make the procedure itself sort of seem like this normal everyday thing, and even if characters haven't heard of this procedure in the movie before, they really take it at face value, and they tend to believe it almost straight away. Jim Carrey finds out that it's a service that exists, and it takes him a little bit to like kind of graduate in there, but once he does, he like fully embraces it. And
that, I think, and you're 100% right. I mean, I like that. I don't know if you appreciated that. There wasn't really a whole plot set up. They didn't have to kind of Jimmy rig this device working. It was just, hey, we erased memories. Okay. Did you do this to her? Yep. I want it done too.
Yeah,
okay.
They didn't give like a whole exposition dump about like the history of like them erasing people's minds and like where the doctor like discovered this ability to do this procedure. Yeah, it's just a very like quick and done thing. Yeah, it focuses more on the story and the characters because of the way that they introduce that sort of plot element, I guess you could say. For sure, which makes the movie even better.
Yeah, I mean, and the story itself, I'm with you on that. Being in a serious relationship before, where you get to that point that the mundane aspects of the relationship. I think there's one time they're eating at a restaurant, and it's just they're sharing a moment. They're in a restaurant, but obviously he feels a little guilty, probably because they should be doing something special, you know, and it's really just they're just in this spot.
Yeah.
He goes, are we really turning into that couple at the restaurant? You know, the ones that you see and you just know that their relationship's done, it's over, there's no spark anymore. And there's certain aspects like that in the movie where it might have been Jim Carrey's first relationship too. I don't know about, you know, if that was his first serious one in the film.
Oh, his character?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's the actor's first.
No, but I mean, in the film, because he's a quiet guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's, I love and I read about this after I watched it too. So the director, Michael Gondry, he specifically told Jim Carrey and only Jim Carrey to not improvise in any of the scenes that he was in. And all the other actors, you know, he said that they were fine to do so. But Jim Carrey, he was specifically restricted to the quiet, meek nature of his character and what the script wanted him to say. And Jim Carrey didn't really like that at all. But
sure, it's Jim Carrey, dude. I get paid to make funny voices and impersonate people.
Yeah, do funny faces all the time.
And they had a scene in there where he does that, but you know, they kind of had to let him get his high just a little bit. But
are you talking about the one where he like opens his eyes and like looks around a little bit, or are you talking about the one where he's a baby?
No, the baby, that was kind of funny and startling.
Yeah, that was a weird part.
They were at a movie theater and they were watching it from the other side of the fence. And they were doing the lines of the actors.
Oh, yeah.
So he got to do it. And I don't know if he was improvising or if those lines were written and he just got to do his Jim Carrey, like, I'm going to act like this gentleman.
Yeah,
Give me a kiss, dolly.
You've got to give him one per movie, I feel
That's what I'm saying. Like, they got an itch. Like, he's got an itch.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Like, Adam Sandler has to get hurt and Jim Carrey has to do a funny voice. That's just the rule.
Yep. It's been written all over Hollywood. It's not even a principle. It's a rule.
Yeah. It's carved into the Walk of Fame. It's very small though. You have to really like look for it with a magnifying glass. So I was going on about the restaurant, and I just think that was there's subtleties in the film, and when you watch it, you realize that there are those moments, you know, the mundane moments that you have with your significant other, and it's just really honestly like understanding that you're sharing it rather than looking at them and blaming them for why you're here. Yeah. You know, and the movie did a really good job between riddling those moments versus his awesome moments. Yeah. You know, the ones that really, and I think that was one of the things I really liked about the film was that you'd have it go through and show the bad stuff with what was going on, but then you'd have the good stuff. And then when he'd see the good stuff, you know, he'd be like, that's when he kind of got his, oh man, like I don't know, I'm not sure about this. Yeah, anymore. That's kind of where like the conflict comes from.
Yeah,
is his, because the whole movie is like 80% of it, I would say, is basically like in his head. Like what he's going through, which I really like. But they really do show like every aspect of that relationship. You know, the toxic, the bad but fixable, and then it kind of like goes into like the lukewarm, like almost like awkward moments, like the dinner scene. Yeah, and then it like kind of like rises back into like when they're the most comfortable with each other. You know, when she's like
with the pillow.
Yeah, like suffocating, like air quotes suffocating him with the pillow. You know, they're just being playful. And like I said, it's really when that kind of kicks off the conflict of like his own mind of whether or not he like actually wants to go through with it. So it's fascinating how they portrayed him fighting against something that is in his head.
So
like translates into the real world.
Yeah. Well, I think from how I was kind of taking it with Kaufman too there are these. And he's a weird dude just from watching these three films. Like he's got to be like either like a genius or just really got high and read a lot of philosophy stuff that's like stood in his brain. But it really felt like he was kind of going through and saying, you know, all right, you have this relationship, you have this thing that happens because it doesn't have to be. I mean, a pet could have died, right? It's obviously an emotional impact on your life, and is that pain worth suffering? You know, for the good, you know, for the high that you get from when you think about it.
Right.
Or is it a reactionary thing where you just can't stomach it, you know, and you have to be absolved of it because it'll make it that much easier because you can't go through the pain.
Yeah.
And the big thing that I really liked was the way that he was kind of going through with it and that you're learning with Jim is that it's almost worth suffering the pain for the good memories, because if they're gone, they're gone. You know? So that was kind of, I really liked how they intertwined that, and you could kind of see as he was going along the decisions that he was making, thinking like, all right, maybe,
Well, I think too, and I just kind of realized this just now, but a big theme of the movie is basically just learning from your experiences and like learning from the things that you've gone through in the past, which kind of comes back to the end of the movie where, because if you really do go through with it and you erase not only the bad parts of the relationship but the good parts, you kind of lose those experiences that you've gained. You lose that sense of you changing as a person because of it, and in a sense you basically just stay the same person that you were before. You don't really grow from what you went through. And so when they reach the end and they like quote unquote meet each other again, and they like kind of like start falling back for each other in a way, I think it was important, and I think it was a really good thing that they did in the movie where they had Kirsten Dunst's character like give away all like the information and the letters of like what people went through, erasing those parts of their memory. And because the characters like find out all this stuff, and because they're listening back to like the recordings of their own testimonies of like why they want to get rid of their memories, it forces them to like kind of learn something that they wouldn't have otherwise if they hadn't received those letters, if they hadn't received those recordings, because now it gives them an opportunity to kind of learn from what they didn't know, to kind of like grow from their actions that they took before that they decided to just get rid of.
Well, and it's also the relationship aspect of being with someone and not being able to communicate those emotions. So they got it out.
That's right.
And they get to, and it's part of growth though. It's something that should happen, like in a relationship organically. You should be able to do it. They couldn't. Then they get back together, and then they, the very end when his tapes are going on, and they're kind of bad.
They're really brutal.
Oh my God! Like, I mean, it has to come out. It'll help you as long as you guys both love each other. But like listening to it, I was like, damn.
It's almost like a weird forced upon therapy session for the both of them.
And they both like, hey, like, why don't we just pause it? But it was good for both of them because he got it out. He didn't have to harbor on it, and she got to hear it in a safe environment. It wasn't him drunk talking to his friends. It wasn't him on the phone talking to his mom. It wasn't him, just going like writing. Even maybe in a journal, it would have been safe enough. But like it was one of those things where this is his honest thoughts, opinions. He's in a safe place talking about it. So I really liked. I thought it was dude. It was just really, it was tightly wrapped.
Yes,
it was tightly wrapped.
I wanna ask you, because I had this thought like right when it ended.
Right.
Do you think the ending is optimistic, or do you think that they are doomed from the start?
No, I actually think it's optimistic.
I think I'm in the same boat, which is why I'm glad that they have those recordings and they have those messages to turn to, because if they didn't, then they would probably be doomed from the start again. It would be that
endless cycle.
Yeah.
But they actually have the growth factor, and I don't know, it was kind of cool too. I mean, it made me curious though, because she's in his head and he's trying to, save it and turn it around or do whatever he can to get her back in his head. So I was like, how is this going to translate to the real world?
Yeah.
And they do it, but it was just kind of funny that he's trying to save these memories, which was another fun part of it. With it was a cool twist a little bit, with some of the decisions he's making. Then all of a sudden he realizes what's going on, and
right. It's it's interesting how like a lot of the character interactions that you see with him are in his head, but they're still kind of like reflective of the people that he knows in the real world. Obviously, they have to be based on something, but there are times when like the other characters in his head, they fight against him. They say that, oh, this is like how it's supposed to be. Maybe this is like what it's meant to be. And it kind of like gives you the sense that okay, they're their own person still, but you have to remember that they're all in his heads at that time.
Yeah.
Which I think is an interesting concept to mull over. Thank you, Charlie Kaufman. Bless you.
I figured you'd have to have a field. See, I'm not a big time writer. You know, I got very.
Dude, I hope I can be half the writer that Charlie Kaufman is one day.
One day. Well, he's got to be like, he had to have written that when he was like in his 40s or something.
He's older, I would say.
I thought I saw on Wiki he was like 60s, pushing up on 60s.
Yeah. I guess for
this is a hell of a time to look.
Sake,
yeah.
I'll look it
so
up.
we don't have to do another read in Ep 7 about how completely.
We don't have to make a correction about how we're fucking stupid.
Yeah. About people's age. You do all these goddamn movies and you don't know this guy's age.
Yeah. You don't know where this guy grew up when he was 17?
I was about to say, audience member, maybe you do it and you get back with us on it.
He is 62.
Nailed it.
So, if you were on The Price is Right, you would be going to the Showcase Showdown.
Believe it. Yeah, so he did a fantastic job writing it, and you, sir, still have 40 years to get to his first one.
Only 40, huh? Oh, boy.
Yeah. Well, if you really try, you might make it to 30.
Oh. If I try hard enough and I drink all my milk.
Oh, boy, oh, boy.
Oh, boy. But, yeah, no, this movie was really enjoyable. I'm glad that we revisited it. I forgot not only a lot of like the aspects of the movie plot wise, but I forgot a lot of the people in them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot that Kirsten Dunst is in it, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood. I really like the fact that Elijah Wood was basically a simp the entire movie.
Oh my god. His character is so gross.
He was really good at playing him, you know.
He did a fantastic job being creepy and weird.
Not even just creepy and weird, just kind of a desperate loser, I would say.
100%.
Because like he stooped pretty low to get where he was in that movie. You know, he got into the relationship with
cheating
Clementine.
We don't have to tell him how, but he cheated to get into it.
Yeah, and not like the normal like relationship type cheating. He like basically like cheated the system.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like granted, if someone came up and handed me like all of Hal Berry's stuff and was like, "Here's the key," I probably would take the binder.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But like, it sounds awful now, but it's Clementine one. And when you see the film, it's kind of like really like that's the best that he could do. Okay, my point being is
like what you're saying is that he has to resort to that to
yes,
to get the girl that he's attracted to.
I'm saying you have like if you had the $1 million ticket and it was like if you just open this envelope you're gonna get it, right? He picked like the $500 ticket. Like, that's a little, I don't want to get caught with that one. Like, let me go down about 8 paces down. This one looks safe. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it was really scummy. It just felt like the whole time, sure. Like he was talking about it, I was like, oh my God. Well, he leads off with a horrible thing to do, which I don't know. Maybe guys do it. I don't know. And then, it's like, oh my God, you did that, and then he goes, oh yeah, and then it gets worse.
Yeah. He's telling the story to Mark Ruffalo about how he like manipulated his way into the relationship.
So,
and then Mark Ruffalo's like, dude, that's effed up. And
yeah.
Anyway, because like they're a bunch of stoners in that movie.
Well, he does, and Mark Ruffalo doesn't care, dude. He's about to get laid, and he's just like, get this guy out of here. Awesome. I don't even remember what Elijah's name in it was.
Oh, what was his name? I think it was Dan or something.
Yeah. Cool Dan.
Something, something mid-ground like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Dan. It could totally not be Dan. I could be absolutely wrong.
Guys, we're not starting out F7 correcting. All right, if Elijah Wood's minor role in this film was Dan or not. All right, text us, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, call us out there.
Send us a message on the Facebook page. You'll be messaging me directly, and I'm just gonna send you Alvin and the Chipmunks memes.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
Or Elijah Wood in different roles.
Yeah,
with a sword.
Elijah Wood as Simon from Alvin and the Chipmunks movies. Which that's a whole nother That's an entire episode.
Man, that Ep9 coming at you. So,
oh boy, we're spoiling our audience. Alvin and the Chipmunks right away, huh?
It'll be our Christmas special.
Yeah. Hey, that's not a bad idea, Mac.
Oh boy.
Don't get me started.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Don't get me started.
Cookies, milk, and AAA.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, I don't know. I don't even know what their name. We don't have to get into Alvin yet.
I thought it was interesting that they showed like kind of snippets of like different aspects of like how the memory erasing technology would like work in various different scenarios, like Kirsten Dunst and her relationship with the boss, how they were basically in an affair, I think, and then he convinced her to erase her memory so that she wouldn't remember that they were in an affair, basically like doing away with the whole thing.
Nuts.
But then like she still gets feelings for him anyway, and then like kisses him towards the end of the movie.
They do if there's a scene when he's sitting in there, she's talking to someone and says, "This is your third one this month. You can't do 3 in a month." You know, so it really makes you wonder too how effective is the memory erasing versus what are we maybe not biologically prone to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of, I mean, it does pose a question with the, you know,
well,
you meet someone, you have your memory erased, you don't remember that person at all, yet you run into them. Is it going to be the same thing? I mean, is it kind of fate interwoven that you guys were supposed to be together?
Right.
Or is it just this kind of chemical imbalance that you see that person and you just go, oh my God, you know? So it was funny that they bring that up towards the end, and she does the same thing. And it really makes you think, all right, I mean, is it that effective? What does it say about us as people? You know, I mean, are our emotions like controllable, or is it fate and, you know, divine power that this is supposed to be?
Right.
You know, so there was a couple heady things.
Yeah.
That he didn't really, I don't think, touch on, but I think threw in there as nuggets. Just from kind of watching this stuff. I mean, the dude's smart, so I think he kind of had that intention of writing it in there. Now, granted, it might not be from my perspective. I saw it. I don't know if that's how you took it in, but
no, I could definitely see that now that you bring it up, because it makes you ask the question, how much of this is because the technology is not 100% foolproof, and how much of it has to do with the fact that no matter what we do, no matter the things that we go through to like get rid of, you know, our past mistakes, air quotes, and experiences, how much of that will we be like kind of redirected into from like you said, some sort of divine intervention or fate or some other kind of abstract concept. He poses those things like throughout all 3 of these films that we're going to talk about. I mean, it was like, and I'm thinking of anything, this was the biggest. Like, he just did not stop in that one. But in this one, I thought there were a lot of subtle takes on that. I know he's a very philosophical dude, and there's a lot in dealing with the mind and imprinting, or the metaphysics agent, the identity. You know, so he brings it up, and that's why I really like this one. And I thought this is the safest one out of all of them. Just because it touches on, obviously you've been, like you said, it doesn't even have to be with a gal. I mean, it could be a pet. Like that could be going through with your dog, you know, and having to go through and like, do I really want to erase? You know, I got Charlie. I had Charlie for 14 years. Do I want him out of my head? Like, if I was that sad every time I thought about him, but then you miss out on the good stuff. And, you know, Charlie's gone now though, so I can't run into him unless I like stumbled over his grave and I just stared at him, you know. Charlie Kaufman?
No, I'm not going to even. We're not joking about murder or plot to kidnap and kill people or to help write episode 7 of the Neon Crew podcast.
I'm sorry. That he sounded like a good dog.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, it's one of those things, like, it kind of, it makes you wonder, is it just people related? Is it, you know, how far does it go? Like I was saying, I think this is the safest one out of all 3 because it's something that we've all gone through, probably questions that have been posed, and he doesn't hammer you over the head with his own theories or philosophical, you know, ideologies or beliefs, however you want to look at it, you know, where he's kind of posing these questions. He doesn't leave them really open-ended.
Right.
He does a couple things, but not too drastic.
Yeah, he gives you concepts to think about, but the story itself is wrapped up pretty nicely.
Yeah, 140 minutes, nice, clean, crisp. So
Yeah. What did you think of the technical aspects of the movie? I thought it was really well shot. Pretty unique cinematography.
Fantastic. Flipping between the POV, the lighting.
It's weird how like the lighting too, specifically. A lot of the shots in his head, specifically at the doctor's office when he goes back and like sees the faceless people, it's shot like a horror movie. It's really creepy in the way that they present that piece of his imagination.
A little bit, and I was wondering like why they were doing. Like, is it a deep recess? Is it because that memory's being erased and he's still gaining access to it? Because I think the first time he gets it, it's not as bad.
Yeah, they still have the faces.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you get into it where it's like no faces, and he's got the flashlight going everywhere and trying to pick up. Like he can't see anything.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if I had something to say about where he was at with the memory in his mind and how he was losing grasp on that one, and that might have been like the last time he gets to it, because it's just dimly lit. Like he is like searching.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if he's holding the flashlight. Someone else.
No, it's like from the camera. Like it's almost like handheld POV shot, but it's not from his POV because you still see him in the shot.
That's a crazy thing. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, who's holding the flashlight now? Now that I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's a flashlight? Anyways.
I think it just shows you like how uncanny the situation is and like how sort of warped his mind in that specific spot in his head is becoming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the different styles they did because like they go from that to almost like like cheeky comedy when he becomes like the baby. Yep. Or like he accesses a memory of his when he was 4, so he's like really small, and then Kate Winslet is with him like throughout the whole thing, so she's like giant compared to him, and she's like the babysitter, so she's in like an old 50s outfit, like smoking a cigarette inside, and I thought the different like sort of like almost genre blending in a way,
which we will talk about because this came out after Adaptation, so.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I really liked those aspects of it. I thought everything technically was really good.
I did too. I mean, I thought the writing was superb and the director did a good job mixing it in here and there, know, and just in the different moods. And it's awesome too because the moods that were being set with the lighting and the cinematography were reflective of, how he was feeling.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about Eternal Sunshine? At all? Anything you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to?
No, that was it. I mean, honestly, just from watching it today, I mean, I'm like, this is a clean 90-minute film. It does make you ponder and think. It's not too heavy in the subject matter, but it will. I mean, if you watch it and you've had a serious relationship and you watch it, it'll make you think just a little bit about it, which I think it's good for growth,
Yeah, it's a movie you can appreciate differently throughout your life. I think the different experiences you gain.
Yeah, 100%. So, and how'd you feel? You liked it? You got anything that you wanted to?
I guess I will just say if I had to rate it, I would probably give it a 9 out of 10.
Dude, you beat me to the punch. I was gonna go. What's the rating on it? So we're not doing 20 stars. We're back down to 10 stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not doing a scale of -10 to 10. Have you heard about that?
No.
Sometimes. I guess, I don't know who specifically, but someone has like a rating scale of like -10 to 0 back up to 10. And the 0 to 10 is supposed to pertain to like normal, like it's a normal rating, like for movies in general. But the 0 to -10 is how much you like a film based on how bad it is. So a movie like, let's say, Venom. Right. I saw Venom 2 recently.
Okay.
Venom,
Spoiler.
Gotta go get him. I'm not gonna spoil Venom 2 for goodness sake. But if I had to like rate it as a normal rating, I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 10. Right. But if I had to rate it based on how like stupid and like semi enjoyable it was, I'd probably give it like a -2. Whereas like a movie like The Room, I would probably give like a -8 or something.
Well, that's what I was about to say. So. That's interesting. Actually, I have a different way of thinking about that.
It's a weird rating system. I just want to touch on real quick.
I would give a -1, but if I had fun with a bad movie, I'd give it a -9. Like,
and I think that's like kind of the point of that specific rating system.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't know.
So you had more fun with The Room than you did with Venom.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Dang, Venom 2. R.I.P., bro.
Gotta go get them at the box office.
WWTHD can't pull his weight. I watched Venom 1. I mean, that one was like to me like a -4, -5. Bad but fun. Like it's like you take it for face value. They're not trying to. They're not doing much, but
it's pretty stupid. Second one.
We don't need to get in. All right, so you got a 9 out of 10 with it. All right, I think I also pretty sure 9 out of 10.
Nice.
That one's pretty damn close to a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, there's really not much. There's really not too much I had gripes with it. I guess if I did have a complaint, I guess like character moments specifically, like when Mark Ruffalo and Kirsten Dunst are like partying in the apartment together. It's like some of those scenes felt a little too, I guess, like ham-fisted and like, oh, look at these guys, they're really stoned, they're hungry and they want munchies, and they're talking about deep philosophical things while they're stoned. Wow, look at these stoners. It's, I don't know, it was just a little bit
I thought it was
stereotypical, I guess.
I thought it was so funny, like compare and contrast for me, or a contrast. So you got this machine hooked up to this guy's brain when, like, theoretically, because obviously it doesn't exist, but if you mess up, maybe you could mess up more of the brain outside of perhaps the memories that you're just erasing there. So I thought it's funny that these guys are so intimate with Jim Carrey during this moment, erasing memories, and they're getting drunk high, and he's trying to fuck, like, you know, in the kitchen while Jim Carrey's just hooked up to this thing, getting memories erased. Yeah. Like, it was kind of like a funny, like, contrast.
It's a weird,
for me.
yeah, it's a weird juxtaposition.
Yeah, yes. That's, man, good with the words.
I'm pulling out the words. The words today.
I think, actually, my beef would have been them dancing on the bed over Jim Carrey. That's the one I didn't get. It's like a really weird, like, why is this happening?
Yeah. If you're going to dance, like, why on the bed?
Over the patient.
Yeah, where you have a chance to like have him fall off or like knock the helmet off his head, and he wakes up and he finds two half-naked people standing over him.
That's the one. So I'm kind of with you on it. Like, I like the relationship between the workers, but once they got into party mode, I was like, take it out to the living room. Like, why? I don't understand why you have to be. And they didn't like incorporate him. They weren't making fun of him while doing it. Like, look at this guy. We're creating memories while he's erasing memories. You know, it's just like dancing on the bed, having fun.
Yeah.
So
little silly moments like that.
So so I'll go with you. I got 9 out of 10. I think it's awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, and we just talked about this whole film, check it out and actually see it for yourself.
Yeah. I guess now's as good a time as any to go into Adaptation.
Believe it.
Directed by Spike Jonze.
Yes.
Written by Charlie Kaufman, of course.
Of course.
Written by Charlie Kaufman and Donald Kaufman, which is something that we can get into. Donald Kaufman is credited on the actual movie for this film.
So,
You can do the plot summary if you would like.
I'll do the plot summary and drop my little tidbit of information. I think I mentioned it on the last app, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it really reeks in this one to the point I was like, I wonder. So we'll talk about it. Anyways, this is a story about Charlie Kaufman.
Yep.
It's Charlie Kaufman in the film, and it opens up with him working on John Malkovich. And he meets with another executive producer, and they say, hey, we have this book we want you to write. It's The Tale of the Orchid, or the Ghost Orchid.
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah, it's written
I'll look up the actual title.
Yeah, and you have to see, I think her name was it Catherine Spleen or something like that?
Susan Orlean.
Susan Orlean. Catherine Spleen. Close. And...
The Orchid Thief is the title of the book.
Orchid Thief. And I think it might actually be a real book. That's what
it is.
Yeah, that's what I meant to look up. And so anyways, it's about Charlie Kaufman and executive producer. We're taking it on. You're going to write the script. And essentially the whole movie is watching Charlie fumble through life trying to write this script.
Yep.
And go through all the problems with writer's block, self-confidence, dealing with things just happening in his life, and also his twin brother.
Yep. His twin brother Donald, also played by Nicolas Cage.
Yes, coming through and having success with screenwriting after going to a 3-day seminar.
Yep.
And Mr. McKee.
Yeah, it's quite the meta movie, I would say. It's got lots of layers to it, not just within the movie, but within the production of the movie.
So real quick, I mean, just having it in mind, I don't know. I think I mentioned it, but this really happened to Charlie Kaufman. He got writer's block.
Well, a lot of it really did happen, right?
No, I'm talking like in real life. Like this script was written on this experience.
Right.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. Okay.
No. No, because we'll talk.
There's
about
some fantastical elements.
Yeah,
to the
but we got to talk about it because I watched this.
Yeah.
And I'm dying laughing because in the very beginning he lays out where the movie's gonna go, and there's points throughout the movie that talk about for the movie itself. It gives it away, but maybe not for him writing this thing.
Right.
But this was a real life experience for him, and he had writer's block, and he ended up writing this movie about himself.
Yeah. He inserted himself into the script, which is kind of like the conflict of the plot in this movie itself, is he writes himself into the script of the screenplay that he's trying to adapt for this book that somebody else authored about somebody else's life.
Oh my God.
So I
didn't even think about that one either.
There is so many layers. So she's trying to tell his story about how he's an orchid thief, about how he goes out into the woods or the swamp.
Mr. LaRoche.
Yep, played by Chris Cooper.
Yes.
Who goes
Chris.
out into nature and steals these endangered orchids and
not
different plants.
Illegally though.
Air quotes, not illegally. That's where the
there's
story
there's a little
comes in.
conflict, yeah.
But then she gets in her head, this would make a really great story. So then she goes and sees what he's all about. She starts writing a story about him, makes it into a book. And so then they want to make that into a movie. So they get Charlie Kaufman to write it. And then, he starts to write it just purely about the flower, right? Almost because he says throughout the movie that he wants to, nobody's written a movie about flowers before. He wants to.
Flowers for Algernon.
Mm-hmm. He wants to kind of set that standard, He wants to get that ball rolling. And so then he struggles with writer's block on that. So then he starts to write about her, writing about the movie. And then he struggles with that too because he is afraid to meet her. He's just afraid to meet people in general because he's kind of an anxious dude, socially awkward.
Definitely, no self-confidence, just does not trust himself in front of which. And we're gonna hop back in here. I'm just curious. I want to ask you about, do you think the real Charlie Kaufman's like that Charlie Kaufman?
I think there are elements that he's put in the movie that reflect his real life personality. I think for this movie specifically, it's kind of accentuated.
Sure.
I guess accentuated for the purposes of the story.
Right.
So
really, they hammer home certain flaw, how feelings, but
yeah, he probably has those traits, and he probably relates to a lot of what he made himself into a character for. But in real life, he's probably not as anxious. He's probably not as severely socially awkward as he portrays himself to be. He made the
character, so it's a character.
Yeah, it's a character. It's a little bit of an extreme exaggeration, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm saying this all not knowing the guy at all. But
you kind of have to do that. You write about characters. I mean, you might know people that you go, that guy could be a character. I could make, if I took out these 3 traits and really drove that and made his kind of decisions around these 3 traits and left the rest of it out.
Yeah.
So he's writing it on
Susan Orlean.
Yep, he went to that point, but he can't talk to her.
Can't talk to her, so then he decides, I'm just going to write about myself trying to write this movie. So then he inserts himself into the script, and then at that point, he kind of starts to get a little thing going.
Which that is a no-no, right?
Well, it's funny because I think in real life, when they showed the script to Susan Orlean in the real world,
yeah,
she was almost mortified at what she was reading, because she was like, how could you like write this about like me and like insert yourself in this and blah blah blah. And then, you know, over time, you know, as the movie released and became successful and stuff like that, because they needed her permission to like greenlight the project.
Yeah.
As time went on, she's like grown to like really appreciate the movie and like what it stands for and like the overall message of it, which is, I think, like kind of the, you know, it's what Charlie Kaufman wanted to get across.
Sure.
But it's just funny that that there was some contention in the real world compared to the amount of contention that we see in this movie.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to note that in the movie, throughout the entire thing, so in the film, Charlie Kaufman, the character, has a twin brother named Donald Kaufman. And Donald Kaufman is credited on the screenplay for this movie, but he's not a real person.
That's what I wanted to ask. I felt, go on. So,
Because
there was a couple of things that I picked up on and this time watching it that I didn't see the first time watching this film, and I laughed my balls off with like how much he toys with the audience.
Because like when you're watching the movie and you see his brother for the first time, you see him just in the house. Like the only scenes that you see him in for a while are just the two of them. So you have to start wondering, like, okay, is this guy like real in the movie, or is it like the character's imagination? Is it Charlie Kaufman as a character? Like, is that a figment of his imagination? And then like pretty much halfway through the movie, you like see him out in the real world, but then you're still kind of wondering, like, okay, he just kind of like appears next to Charlie in a way. Like they show the shot and he's just there. So he's definitely got to be an imaginary part of his mind, right? He's definitely got to be a figment. And then the movie goes on and you see Donald interacting with other people that Charlie Kaufman has interacted with throughout the movie. And then those people turn to Charlie and say, oh, your brother's so funny. He's such a good writer. And it's just funny how like they kind of like take that concept and they flip it on its head for a movie that came out in 2002, because at that point you would almost expect the character to be imaginary.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you learn that there is no actual Donald Kaufman. But the fact that he's real in the movie kind of like adds to the ridiculousness of it and sort of reminds you of the fact that, hey, this is very hyperbolic, very like exaggerated based on real things that have happened.
Yeah.
And certain parts of the movie you should not take as fact. And I thought,
oh yeah, well, I thought
he kind of like represented that as a character, just like the fact that he existed in the movie.
I mean, he didn't come out and say it was a biopic. I mean, it's still technically written about the orchid thief.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, he so a couple funny things. One was the intro to the movie.
Mm-hmm. Can you remind me? I think I watched it like a week ago.
Earth comes through. Flowers start growing. Volcanoes coming down. This is an intro to Adaptation, too. Like, I'm watching this. I just remember being like, what the hell is this? Because I saw a baby being born at one point.
Yeah.
Life.
Mm-hmm.
Hither on too.
Yeah. I remember that now. How could I forget?
He goes, it happens. And then one of the times he's talking into it, exact same, he reads that into the tape recorder.
Yep.
And then the best part of all that, so he gets done, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's listening back. So he had this huge epiphany, okay? He's going on and on. He's like doing the crazy talk, pointing, yes, yes, yes. And it literally goes, smash cuts to him in this dark room listening to it like, I am a fucking madman. He was just like, this is the ramblings of a lunatic.
Yeah,
just listening to it.
He gets his recorder going and he just starts rambling off all these different things.
Primates, apes, gorillas. We'll cut after whatever came after that before man, and then man. And he's just like, he's sitting there, him listening to it, and he's like, I can't do this.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Oh my God. And so that was a really funny part because like
there was a similar thing too with the public speaker with the
McKee.
Yeah, with McKee.
Yeah.
So so in the movie his brother Donald like goes to this guy, this like professional like screenwriter who's
3-day
like
seminar.
Yeah, it's like a 3-day seminar type thing. And then he comes back, he starts writing this script, and he like tells Charlie about it throughout the whole movie. And based on what he's describing, it sounds like a almost typical like kind of like blockbuster like horror type thing that
popcorn.
would like
I just call them like a popcorn flick. Like, you know you're going to be able to make it. It'll generate an audience. It's not going to be high stars, but
something that's going to be popular with the masses, but not necessarily like sit well with the critics. You know,
it's not artsy.
It's not artsy.
It's a money grab.
Yeah, it's guaranteed to like make money. So he starts writing a script like that. And he like makes progress on it throughout the movie, where Charlie Kaufman is like constantly having writer's block and constantly struggling.
It is like the most ludicrous script.
Yeah.
That like really, it's kind of like one of those when you're a kid, like you'd come up with them, right? But like at one point just goes, so that there's 3 people, but they're all the same.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. And he's like, well, how is he going to have one tied up in a basement and the other one working at the police station? And then like they both stare at each other and he goes, hey, yeah, it sounds great, Donald. You know, like there was no answer to it. Just that's what he's dealing with.
He doesn't doubt it for any further. He just kind of like lets him do his thing.
Well, I mean, and he knows how ludicrous I mean, he's hearing it. I mean, think about it, dude. He's right. The Orchid Thief, New York Times bestseller. I just wrote John Malkovich. His brother comes home and is writing this easy screenplay, probably. And poor Charlie can't get the Orchid Thief. And he has all the content there to write it.
Right.
You know,
he just doesn't know how to like piece it together.
Yeah.
So then, you know, after he struggles so much to get the script together, and you know they're breathing down his neck, they want the script at a certain time, and he's running behind. So he goes into panic mode, and then he finally like resorts, like halfway through the movie, he resorts to actually going to this guy's seminar, and to see like one of his presentations that he's given, and the guy that's speaking, McKee, is very like blunt and like rude and crass and like very like I don't want to say like just like blunt, I guess would be a good word. Like he's very blunt about the things that he's telling people to do in the scripts that they write.
He's an artist and he sees the world at face value. So every answer that he has is his answer. And I think the passion comes through because there's a lot of themes in this about being passionate about something. So we actually got to, as a writer, see another writer who's very passionate about what he does.
Yeah.
So I think like that kind of comes off as being curt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he absolutely was, because he nailed him to the coffin.
But I find it funny because so like the seminar happens, right? And then at the end of it, Charlie Kaufman catches up to him and he's like, I really need your help. And then they go and like get drinks and stuff. And the guy's giving Charlie Kaufman advice about how to like put the script together. And he says, I remember these 2 specific things that he tells him. It's like, it doesn't matter if your movie starts out shit, as long as it ends in a really epic way, you know, like
the third act, the ending of the movie has to kill it.
Yeah, the ending of the movie has to kill it. So shootout guaranteed to be a success, right? Or like something like that.
Oh, he was
was he saying like to not have a shootout?
No, he was just going out. He just grabbed him by the arm. He put his hand and he goes, you just got to end it. He goes, however you do it, no one gives a shit about the first 2 acts.
Yeah.
As long as you end it, that's all the audience will remember. That's like was his biggest thing, was like, you just got to end it properly. And if you end it well, it'll be well received. You know, and if you don't, it's a flaming pile of shit.
But there was something else too that really stuck with me when he said it to him, because he said, and please, for whatever you do, don't do an ex machina.
Yes.
And then come the end of the movie, the main bad guy gets eaten by an alligator just out of nowhere and just fucking dies.
There's so many of those. So he goes into this thing, okay? Now,
and there's also a shootout too.
Oh, he goes into this thing, and when he met with Tilda Swinton, the executive, he goes, I want this to be like original, organic. I want this to be, full of life and this and that. He goes, I don't want this to be some Hollywood bullshit where there's, a shootout or drugs are involved or, someone's cheating on someone or having an affair. Like, I don't want to deal with those types of themes or, opinions. And then sure as shit, the end of the movie, she's fucking the dude doing coke with a gun in her hand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was so many of those moments where he's He's in it saying you can't do this or do that, or I shouldn't do this or do that, and then it pops through and he does it. Or the other funny part that I laughed at was, like you'd mentioned with Donald, he's writing schizophrenia, and Charlie says something like that's sloppy writing. That's the easy way out. Schizophrenia, it's a way to and sure as shit. He's got like a fucking made up brother in the film.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like the whole time he writes this, he's toying with the audience members, and he's actually going through what you're told not to do versus like what he does.
Yeah,
and it's ingenious that he can take that and insert it into the film and make it work.
Right.
Genre blending, genre mixing.
Yep.
They're talking about it, and his brother Donald goes. It's towards the end of the film, and he looks at his Charlie. Says, "Oh, Charlie, by the way, I'm gonna have a song in my film. And he goes, "Why? What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, it's to kind of it's to show the contrast between the killer and bring some levity to the situation where there's some dark moments, right? And it's happy together. Imagine me and you, right? So
they sing that song.
And Charlie goes, Donald, you can't blend genres in these films."
And then, of course,
so not only that, but
the end of the movie,
right? And then Eternal comes out, and you were talking about it, blending genres. So he obviously can see as a writer that he's got a little bit of the style to him.
Yeah,
and he doesn't follow. I think they talked about rules. Rules are set in stone, and you can't. You have to follow or don't follow principles. Writing principles. Are what's worked throughout generations and are perceived as like correct, but it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just a guideline.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought that was this whole movie is just like a meta sort of like layered kind of piece.
Oh God, yeah.
And what's really interesting too is that I think the title has I think it was like 3 different meanings basically. So there's adaptation, which is the obvious meaning is adapting the book to script for a movie,
right?
Like adapting a different story into another medium. And then adaptation of the flower itself, where the flower has to like kind of adapt to like a different environment, and they go into like all these different like sort of like plant ecology type things. Plant science, whatever that's called. I'm not a
horticulturist. Horticulture.
Oh yeah, there you go. You got me there.
Is that it?
I'm gonna say it is.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Congrats, Mac.
There it is.
And then the third meaning, adaptation, how different people adapt to situations that they're in. So, Chris Cooper's character had to adapt to the fact that his wife passed away, and how his whole nursery was basically destroyed in a storm like right after. So he had to adapt to a whole different life and a whole different way of thinking basically to survive. And then Susan Orlean has to try to adapt to the fact that she has like mixed feelings about her husband, and that she is like really intrigued by this guy, but how much of that is like her just being lonely, and how much of that is her like actually being attracted to this man.
Right.
And then Charlie Kaufman, how does he adapt to like different situations that he's in? How does he like try to adapt to like the social interactions that he encounters? Because a lot of this movie is Charlie Kaufman's character being just trying to like overcome himself and overcome the different sort of obstacles that he mentally puts in his path.
I think they talk about 100%. They talk about that in the film too. They said that would be a boring film if you wrote about a guy that can't write a film.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that they chose to have his brother Donald be a twin and to just look exactly like him, because throughout the movie he's worried about his appearance, he's worried about like sweating too much, and the fact that he's balding, and the fact that like he just kind of like overweight and he looks like a mess. His brother Donald looks exactly like him, and he's got confidence, he's got the ability to talk to people, and that sort of like makes people gravitate towards him.
Yeah.
So it kind of sends that message throughout the movie that it doesn't matter what you look like, it matters what your personality and your demeanor is towards people and towards yourself.
Agreed. I think he touches on that in the first 8 lines of the movie. Like he kind of goes over I'm fat, I'm bald.
Yeah, he has
I'm
this
pathetic.
like sort of inner monologue with himself.
He's going on, and then he says, well, listen, I mean, it's all about confidence. Women don't care about what you look like. He goes, but that's not true either, is it? I forget, at one point he said men have it just as hard as women do in terms of being objectified. And it's obviously kind of his excuses that he makes for himself to be in the situation that, because he even says, like, I should run.
He's very hard on himself. He's 100%. Very like doubtful, and I think it kind of like contributes to that writer's block that he experiences, because he has doubts not only about his ability to talk to women and to connect with people in general, but also with him as a screenwriter, with him as like a writer in general, because all of a sudden, like, his brother is like starting to get noticed. His brother is like getting all these like different compliments about his script and things like that. And he starts to like kind of like, that's when he really like starts getting blocked in terms of like trying to like complete his screenplay. Yeah. And I think it just kind of like adds to the different like, he was a good character, I feel like. Charlie Kaufman. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
And Nicolas Cage, I think, played him and Donald pretty well.
I mean, 100%.
I think it probably one of his best performances, I would say. Nicolas Cage, I don't think he's a bad actor at all.
No, I don't he's think, really not.
Like, performance-wise throughout the movies that he's in, I don't think he's had a bad one. I mean, maybe Next, but I just hated Next so much.
No, he's got bad. He does the money grab thing where he says, "I'll take the paycheck to be in the film," and mails it in. But
if he's in a movie that, like, if he's got good direction and stuff, like, he'll give it his all. Yeah. Which I think he really did for this movie, and it definitely shows. I think all the acting is just really good.
Superb.
Like Chris Cooper, he very believable that he didn't have front teeth throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. Meryl Streep's in it. I mean, everyone that has a speaking line in this, I think, nailed it.
Because, like, Chris Cooper, like, I kind of recognized him, but the whole time I just saw him as, like, this kind of, like, backwoods hick that just went around, like, taking plants from
I'm the smartest man I know.
Yeah. Kind of like this van living sort of like intellectual hippie dude in a way.
He was he was a smart dude though.
He was.
That was kind of I really like that that juxtaposition, if you will, about where he was at in life, what he was doing versus the knowledge that he had. Yeah. Like, don't you think he could have got into like a university or a high school and taught?
Oh yeah.
Like, I feel like like he definitely could have been able to do that. Now, granted, whatever was weighing on him, but I thought it was cool. I like that word, juxtaposition for what he was.
Yeah, and you could argue that it was like him and his almost inability to adapt to the situation that happened to him, because after his wife dies and after he loses his nursery, he kind of like loses that focus for things and sort of has to like go with the wind with almost any interest that he gains. He gets interested in orchids for like a certain period of time, and then he's interested in the ocean, and then he tells Meryl Streep that he never is going to set foot in the ocean again. He kind of like jumps from one thing to another, and he's very sure of himself that way, but it's almost like a defense mechanism. In a way.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Not adapting. Gets to a point where he needs to make a change or turn take a step over, and he can't do it.
So yeah, I like the fact that it's so layered, and that like after his meeting with the speaker, what was his name?
McKee. I think it was, I know it was McKee. I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. After his meeting with McKee is basically when the movie kind of like just becomes this sort of like, I don't want to say like standard sort of like hero's journey, but it gets an arc. It like becomes a plot in a way. Like, it has stakes. you know?
Yeah.
There's like these weird like different secrets going on, and like there's an affair plot happening, and there's also drugs involved, and this sort of like dangerous element to it where they're like sneaking to see if Susan Orlean is cheating on her husband with this orchid thief guy. And I just thought it was really well done. That's
all I got. I was curious on your thoughts on it, and that's actually pretty good insight for how layered it is.
I feel like I have to watch Being John Malkovich now because they included that like air quotes behind the scenes.
It was his first, Charlie Kaufman's first film.
Yeah.
That I'm assuming made it to Hollywood or the big screen.
And it was funny that, I guess not funny, but it was very interesting how they managed to get like John Malkovich and Greg Kinnear and like Catherine Keener back for like small appearances throughout like the set of Being John Malkovich for this movie, where Nicolas Cage is playing Charlie Kaufman. I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of makes me want to watch Being John Malkovich now.
I might check it out too, because I saw that when I was I want to say 14.
Okay.
14 or 15. So I mean, it's been
a minute.
Well, not only that, but as you can tell, Charlie Kaufman movies are kind of heady. So to watch, I don't know, Being John Malkovich at the age of 14, not really knowing much of anything.
You're like, what the hell is this?
Just watched it, small room, kind of funny. He's in his head, all right.
Not much else to it.
Yeah, this is supposed to be really funny. I don't find it humorous. But I saw that and I was like, I bet you if I rewatched that, I'd be able to take a couple things from it.
Yeah.
So for me, rating.
Yeah, I mean, you can go first.
Yeah, I got Adaptation. I also gave it a 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Same for me. For me.
I'm pretty.
There really wasn't much that I had as far as like a complaint in the movie. There are movies that I, of course, like more than this, but
well, yeah.
As far as like all around movie goes, like this was really good, and I would hope that people would watch it at some point, because I think it's important to watch, and it's really good, really well done.
I mean, it's probably a good movie for writers too. I mean, well, maybe a little bit.
This would be a good movie to show in like a film class.
Yeah.
Like film.
I'm not talking. Yeah.
Film script writing 101.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe like high school, like senior year of high school or freshman year of college.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one that would pertain to a lot of people, where you could go through and dissect a lot of the screenplay.
Yep.
No, yeah, and to me, this movie's like a very, very like thick dessert.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty good, but it's not something that I'm gonna get seconds on,
right?
Or at least go and grab a plate or anything like that.
It's not something that I'm gonna like watch all the time.
No. So that's where I'm at with it. But a fantastic film.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't yet. Yeah, I mean, we just spoiled the whole thing, but
all of them are talked about and spoiled. So obviously, if you've gotten to this point, then
what the hell are you doing?
Tune out to Well, you can see Eternals on Peacock and Showtime.
Oh, really?
Yep, streaming service. I found that out when I went to Hulu.
Okay.
And now I'm a Showtime subscriber.
Nice.
$4 a month. Not bad.
That's not too bad.
No, for a year though, and then it's up to like 10. So I got to make sure I stay on top of it, which I won't.
No.
And then Adaptation was a YouTube rental. I don't know where you found it at.
I rented it from Amazon.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Family Video.
No, usually Amazon is like the first one I check, and then if it's not free on Amazon, I'll check Netflix, and then if it's not on Netflix, I'll go to my Canopy app, and then if it's not on there, I'll just rent it from Amazon.
There you go, for like the $4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're less than that. Sometimes they're like 99 cents. I think.
Really?
Yeah. What was 99 cents that I rented not too long ago?
99 blocks?
No. I mean, if I look it up, it might. Because like I put these movies in a list, so I might remember.
Yeah. So that's. I mean,
I think it was the 1984 Dune.
Oh yeah, you watched that before you watched Dune?
No, I watched the old Dune after.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
It sucks. It's so bad. I get.
If you didn't like the first one, please do not check out the second one.
Oh man. Yeah. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say those are your two spots to watch it. Those ones, and then I'm thinking of Ending Things is on Netflix.
Netflix.
And then probably a YouTube or an Amazon rental too. Netflix if you have Netflix. So
I think it's a Netflix exclusive. So
actually, I think you're right.
yeah, because I think Netflix
No, you're right.
it has the big N
on it.
on the
Well,
thing
it's got
when you go
that
into
ribbon.
Netflix.
Yeah,
The little N ribbon.
I'm not really used to the Netflix exclusives. Like I know it's a big thing, but I kind of tuned out to Netflix when they started really ramping it up. There are like thousands.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of schlock, but a decent amount of it is pretty good.
I would say 6 to 7 stars, probably for at least like 80%. Like the production value is going to be good, and you're going to have like decent writing in it.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah, it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. But yeah, I guess that's a good segue to go into I'm thinking of ending things, which I guess I can quickly spoiler-free summarize before we really get into it. So I'm thinking of ending things came out 2020, written by Charlie Kaufman, directed by Charlie Kaufman.
Man.
This is one of the few films that he's actually directed. Is about this young woman who's in a relationship with this guy that she's been in for about a month or so, maybe a little more than that, and she's going on the road with him to his parents' farmhouse where he grew up to meet his parents for the first time, and she's second guessing their relationship and sort of going over like different sorts of doubts that she has about it, and trying to figure out whether or not she wants to end things. Hence the title, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Now, I want to ask you, Mac, because this movie is hard to label, right? It's hard to sort of pinpoint an exact genre to it because
metaphysical.
It is.
That's the only way.
It is quite surreal, I would say. It's a very like surrealist movie. There's different sort of things going on where reality kind of shifts into itself, where things aren't exactly what they seem, as some trailers would say for other movies. I want to know what your interpretation of the movie is. And
for me,
yes, I want to hear what you got out of it, what the message of it was, what you think the movie was overall about, and then I'm going to tell you what I know what the movie is and like what it's trying to do.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. You got that insight? Talk to Charlie?
I think not exactly Charlie, but I think I have a good grasp of like what the movie's trying to go for.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious as to what you got from it.
It's very
spoilers for I'm Thinking of Ending Things, by the way.
Yeah, all three of them got it. Well, I mean, and this one I don't even know if there's much to spoil because I don't really. I'm like it felt. I'm trying to think. One, there was a lot of themes that I took from it. One was like existentialism, a crisis as you go through, realizing where you're at in this world with the overall supreme being of things. You mentioned it, surrealism. Reality falling into reality. I think there was snippets where I thought that we might be. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know who the protagonist was. I guess who we're following in this film, because I thought it was funny that she would be in the car going, "I'm thinking of ending things" in her voice, and then Jesse Plemons would cut her off. So it made me wonder: is Jesse the narrator of this? This is an unreliable narrator. One. So is Jesse Plemons really the narrator? Like, where are we getting with that? So I kind of was thinking at the beginning, psychological thriller. Okay. We're going to get into it where Jesse's kind of writing the script as we go along. And then you find out that's not the case and that Charlie has a lot to say about a lot of different things with agents, identity. I'm trying to think. I thought that he was poking fun at people at times. There's a point in the film where he kind of lays out what the whole film is and what it's doing. Okay. I thought he was poking fun at the Midwest a little bit with some of his metaphors. the pig getting eaten alive by maggots. And then he goes to the janitor, and I thought that was kind of a representation or a metaphor for loneliness, depression, and how we eat away at our lives.
Okay.
You know? So, other than that, the whole vessel through time, I kind of made up in my head that the car was memory going back and forth, traveling through Jesse Plemons' brain, and that was kind of where time was at. So as the car was moving, we were going through this time period with them. As the car stopped, we were going through aspects, perhaps looking at what could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was there was a lot going on. I'll just say that, and a lot that Charlie was. And I don't know if it's a lot simpler than that, but I felt that there was a lot of different ideologies or themes or points that he was trying to make throughout the film, and just tied it up with these two people that really don't know each other.
Okay.
You know, so.
All right. Would you like me to tell you what my viewpoint of the movie is?
Yeah.
The key to the movie is the janitor.
Yep.
The janitor is
Jesse Plemons, right?
Yep. So the janitor is an older version of Jesse Plemons' character. Jesse Plemons being the young man who's like one of the main characters in the movie. And throughout the whole movie, it's all in the janitor's head. It's all in his head, and the janitor wants to kill himself.
Yeah.
He wants to end his own life, and the events that happen between Lucy or Lucia or whatever name you want to call her, because she has multiple different names throughout the movie.
Right.
Between her and Jesse Plemons' character, Jake, everything between them and everything between the parents, the farmhouse, when they stop at the ice cream shop, and when they go to the school, basically the entire movie is all in the janitor's head. And it's.
So you think this is him fantasizing?
This is him going over different regrets, different sort of life experiences that he's had, sort of like where kind of like things might have went wrong, where things like kind of took a turn for the worse, and kind of like having an almost debate with himself as to whether or not he should actually go through suicide, because I kind of see this as sort of like Jessie Buckley, who plays the woman in the movie. She kind of represents that sort of like almost like unsurety, that like uncertainty that he has throughout his life. She's always like questioning things. She's always kind of like going through like different sorts of like bouts of doubt sort of thing. Whereas like Jesse Plemons' character, Jake, is more of like a representation of like almost like the extremes of things. You know, he kind of like sees things as more of like a face value type thing. You know, he's a character who like grew up on a farm, and things aren't easy on a farm, and that's just kind of like how it has to be. But then like you start thinking to yourself, does it really have to be this way? Is there like a different path that I can go on? Because there's that moment where they're driving back. I think it's between the ice cream shop to the school towards the end of the movie. There's that moment where they're driving in the car, and he's kind of like has this breakdown where he starts like questioning like whether or not things are going to get better, whether or not things are going to essentially like turn up for the good, you know. It's him like having this sort of like emotional breakdown, and then Jessie Buckley is like in the passenger seat going like, you know, she's like throwing her hand up and like kind of like almost like disputing what he's saying, because she doesn't take it seriously. So it's like you get like kind of the workings of like both of them in a way. But essentially like those characters, whenever they like share those similarities, it's like his memory like blending the two of them together, because there's that moment where they're in the house and they're like both looking at picture frames, and then she's like, who's that child? And he's like, oh, you can't recognize him? That's me. And then she goes, I'm pretty sure that's me. And then, you know, the parents come and they interrupt, and then like another scene goes on. But those moments like that where the characters like kind of like blend their identities and sort of like embody different traits of each other is when the character of the janitor is really showing, because it's all in his head.
Right.
It's all him as a person. You can kind of like get that sense of like that sort of like real world sort of creeping into like his fantasy that he's having. Because in the beginning, when they're riding in the car to the farmhouse, from like the town to the farmhouse, you can like hear her inner monologues of like her saying, I'm thinking of ending things. I'm thinking of breaking up with Jake. He's a really good guy, but I haven't known him that long. There are moments where you can hear the janitor's voice faintly in the distance, like kind of over her voice, or like not even over her voice, just like on its own. Like when they pass the billboard with the pig, and you can hear the pig's voice say, come on, follow me, I'll show you. It's like very faint, but if you don't like pay attention to it and you don't catch it, you can easily miss it. So yeah, there's just there's a whole lot of things going on like in his head. You know, he's thinking about the regrets that he has with like how nobody was able to like see the good stuff that he did for his parents. You know, there's that scene where he's like feeding his elderly mom, or like trying to, and he like makes that comment like, sometimes I feel like nobody sees the good that you do in the world. And that's like a part of him that is like kind of contributing to the fact that he wants to end his own life. You know, he knows that he's done good things, and he knows that he's done things that he's proud of, but what point is there if nobody recognizes them? What point is there if like he doesn't have anybody to show them to? And so the movie is ultimately about like his loneliness and like how he didn't accomplish the things that he wanted to in his life, and ultimately wants to end it. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of picked up on the janitor when they got to the dance, or the scene in the school. And obviously they had the little diner thing, and they said the names in it, and then they go back and they called her by the name from the woman in the diner.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, oh, this is the janitor. But then they go to the school, and that's when I kind of started losing out on when it was mixing in with the janitor, because she walks up and gives him the hug in the school. They kind of talk for a minute, and he's just, you can't believe it's her. Which, like, looking back now, that kind of makes sense. Like, it's finally, maybe he's confronting this. Maybe he's finally saying, I'm letting you go.
I think in that moment, it's him, like, finally making peace with certain aspects of his life, because throughout the movie, her story changes as to, like, how the two of them met.
Yeah.
How, like, the first story, it's, like, trivia night. The second story, it's, like, at this, like, college seminar or something. And then finally, like, you get to the end of the movie, and he's just standing there, like, looking at her, like, him as the janitor is standing there looking at her. In his head, it's kind of like him accepting the fact that it wasn't like this sort of like
fairy tale,
this like fairy tale sort of like thing. It was just the fact that he kept staring at her, and she felt pressured. He was like kind of being a creep.
I just said yes because it was easier to say yes than no. I was never taught how to say no, so it's just easier to say yes.
Yeah, exactly. She has that whole speech to him about how she felt pressured into like saying yes to him, and so that kind of like led into like the sort of like lackluster nature of their relationship, and how she had those doubts in the first place, or at least he thinks that she had those doubts in the first place in his head, because that's just what he's assuming is the reason for their relationship ending.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not that was actually the case is uncertain, but yeah, that was just kind of like him accepting that fact and sort of like being at peace with that part of his fantasy, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there was and I agree with that, because I got tapered off. I was under that inclination, and then they had that meeting. Right, and that's, I guess, just kind of not understanding some of what's going on and what he's thinking about or dealing with. But then you have the fight, the dance.
Oh yeah, the dance.
That threw me off.
Okay,
that's when I really started. I was like, "What's going on?" And I don't know if maybe that was his acceptance, or if that was him saying that this is going to happen.
I think that was a moment of high fantasy that turns into a moment of almost morbid reality. Because in the dance itself, it's an exaggerated version of what he's been fantasizing about. You know, it's like a fairy tale-esque scenario where he's dancing with this woman. He's like winning her over. They're beautiful together. They have this wonderful thing going on. The door opens for them. They like glide through it together as like this beautiful couple. This veil falls down on her head and a priest comes out and they get married. But then all of a sudden, an exaggerated version of this like villain janitor character comes out and they have like this violent dance with like him and
they're fighting
and I think that's supposed to represent what he wanted in life versus what he actually got. So what he wanted in life was like this sort of like fairy tale kind of thing, this like romantic view of like finding like the perfect woman, having a life with her and being happy, versus what reality had in store for him, you know, him getting a job as a janitor at his old school and losing the woman that he, you know, didn't really have the best connection with in the first place. And so, you know, he's left there dead. And then you see the real janitor, I guess air quotes real janitor, like coming up and like sweeping away like all the snow and stuff that is around the dead body of like his idealized self. Mm-hmm. Sort of like him like coming to terms with the fact that this is never going to be my life. And it was unrealistic of me to think that it was going to be my life.
It's so weird. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't follow them for being bad. He is kind of sad and curmudgeon.
He's you can tell he's someone that kind of like he has a lot of regrets.
100%. Well, and I guess I wasn't too far off with thinking that Plemons was the narrator at the beginning. It was the older Plemons.
Yeah, it's the version of him that has gone through life.
Yeah. So no, when I was watching it, I honestly had the I don't even know, the thought process about what is grounded in reality versus kind of what's happening. Mm-hmm. So as we were going along with it, with the janitor making up these alternate, you know, scenes with the parents.
Yeah.
Right. There was a scene where the parents were old, they were young, they were weird. One time there was an old, and then the dad was incredibly young.
Yep.
And it was kind of throwing me off, and I was just thinking, oh man, it's our perception with the world and how we go through it and what we can be, you know, essentially what is our reality is what we determine it is. Mm-hmm. You know, so I was watching it in that light. So the janitor thing was kind of throwing me off a little bit, and I was like, oh, maybe this is kind of him.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't really think it was choices that were made or that were meant to be made. It was him kind of crafting up these pathways.
Well,
you know,
it's interesting how because like I said, it's all in his head, and so like a lot of his fantasy, a good portion of it is cohesive, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word. There are like small elements where like things go a little bit weird, like when the dog starts shaking and it shakes for just a little bit too long.
I think there were devices put in there to kind of keep it maybe on the psychological thriller side.
But in those scenes, there are still like sometimes moments where like the longevity of the scene is for the most part normal, and that's when he has like the most cohesive memory. I think it's when the memories start like piling on top of each other is when they get really like fragmented and hazy, because like you said, those moments where the mom is like really old but then the dad is like really young still at the same time, or like the inverse, or like they're both really old. I think it's just like him kind of like trying to hastily like put these memories together, and the ones where they're like the most cohesive are the memories that he has like the strongest grasp
the car when they're in the car the whole time.
Yeah, when they're in the car the whole time, or when they're at dinner with his parents. You know, you can tell that could be a memory that lasted for quite a while with him, and that it's something that he remembers
maybe that's
clearly.
Where it went wrong, or maybe that's what he blames it on, and then past that it was, you know.
Ugh, my voice is dying so much.
No, it was. I mean, that was kind of. I was thinking about. I hate to bring in Marvel, but the multiverse. The branches of timelines that can deviate from certain periods of time, you know, or from certain actions, and you can see how that action had the ripple effect in different strands. So I'm watching it that way, and I was just thinking like maybe. he's going through thinking about, maybe this is where it went wrong. Maybe that's where it went wrong. Maybe this is how it, and because you get the dad with the Alzheimer's, and then the mom's sick, but the dad's still there. So like you're saying, compounding memories. I was just trying to think of maybe that these things were alternate, realities for him on when it could have went wrong.
Right. And a lot of the memories that he has too, you can take as like unreliable because they're from his point of view.
He's 100% unreal.
There's so many things in the film that like, they're quote unquote memories, but
yeah.
I mean, throughout the entire thing, especially Jessie Buckley's character, her character is so like unsure of like who she is and like what her identity is. I mean, her name changes almost every scene.
In IMDb, she's labeled as like the lady or the girl.
Because how else? I mean, I guess Lucy is the most consistent name she has,
yeah,
but like that's only in the
dropped
beginning.
On her, yeah.
Because like it goes from like Lucy to like Lucia to Ames. It kind of like devolves into like a name that's not even close to like what the first name was.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like she's like just an amalgamation of like this memory that like he has put together through like either one partner or who knows, multiple partners, because not only does she have multiple names, but she has multiple professions.
Yeah.
They at one point they say that she's a poet, and then they say she's a physicist, and then they say that she
a painter
is a painter, and then that she's like this biochemistry student or something like that. Like all her different fields like come and go, and they like kind of like dip and like rise in like these sort of waves, and they always change.
For every gal that he never made it work with, that just gets put together.
Yeah, and they're always like this prestigious sort of position that he gives them. It's not like he doesn't give them a profession like, say a janitor or like a fast food worker.
One time, I think they said that she was a waitress.
There was, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was like paying for schooling or something like that. Like you did this, but it was to get to that.
Yeah. Because like she always like gives like different reasons kind of why she has to go back home. Like I told you I have to go back to start my shift early, or I told you I have to go back to like write this paper. There's like all these different things that are changing.
40 different reasons why I have to get back home.
I mean, she basically really did. And what's funny too in that specific scene when they're driving from, I think it's the ice cream place to the school, like at one point the actress just changes altogether. She changes into the actress that he as the janitor is viewing in a movie in the real world that is directed by Robert Zemeckis. Did you like that scene?
I was so like that one was happening, and then I'm just sitting there because I think it showed him turning it on and watching it, and then you hop in it, and then you really it's funny because after that, so watching that, I kind of felt like the janitor had some part to play in the film. I wasn't exactly sure, and then it kind of came up where it might be Clemens, right? But after that, the chick in the movie, her name was like Lucia. Because you're saying it because she was going up the stairs, and then he goes, "Hey, Lucia, where are you going?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this is obviously the janitor's Clemens." But I didn't. I wish I would have put more together with recreating of moments that were going on. I kind of figured it was just this one person, and he was trying to figure out, where essentially where it went wrong.
Right.
And for me, it was if you were at the house, you were grounded in that point, and if you were in the car, obviously you're grounding in some sort of time elapse, perhaps different approaches to conversation that he could have said that maybe would have made her stay with him, and you kind of go through it where you just find out that they really don't have, I don't want to say anything in common, because the second part when they're going back, I mean, they're laying out a lot of stuff and their differences as people, but it goes to your point though with the multitude of partners. They talk about probably 12 different things, and they get in arguments in the car about.
Yeah. Like her at one point her entire personality changes. Like she all of a sudden becomes like this really
snobby critic.
Yeah, this snobby like movie critic that's like smoking a cigarette the entire time, and she has like this New York accent all of a sudden.
No, you wouldn't even make sense of it all, darling, if you could do it like that. I mean, it doesn't even make, Yeah, it was insane. She did a fantastic job too. So and then the janitor, they get with the pig. That thing had me like, that That was, I'm trying to think of a word. It was eerie.
Unsettling?
Yeah, but it also had a weird, it was just a vibe. I mean, like you said, like he was talking about taking his life, and like the pigs going through talking about it, and it was just that, it was off-putting, I guess. Unsettling, off-putting. Like I was listening to this pig, and I was like, this poor guy like walking through, and that's when I thought it was kind of they were poking fun at the Midwest. I was like, this big guy with the pigs being eaten alive. We do nothing. We have to hide our loneliness. So what do? We feed into all of our insecurities with food, because you had the dairy shop, which now looking back, it's probably him as a kid being tormented by those gals. And that was probably another girl that he had a crush on that was doing the sizzling thing with the rash.
Mm-hmm. I saw that as more of like, and you could be totally right in that assessment. We could be both right in each of our assessments, but for me, I think I saw that scene as more of like kind of a reflection of like what he goes through like day to day as a janitor, because like they go to the school and they find all those dairy cups in the dumpster. Like it's just filled with those cups. And it kind of reflects like maybe like his day-to-day habits. And it could be like just a reflection of like what he goes through as a janitor, because, you see the scene in the movie where like he's walking by and those girls like kind of make fun of him.
It was when they're, same girls by the locker.
Yep.
And I think it's the same girls that were at the dance. He goes up and they made eye contact and they kind of, they were repulsed a little bit that he was watching them.
Yeah. And so like, of course, in his memory, Jesse Plemons, him being that character, he is like a young person is like, oh, I don't like some of the girls that are here. They're not very nice. And like, it just kind of like it emphasizes that sadness that he feels in that situation, in his lot in life. And then, they encounter the other girl that's there, the one that has the rash on her arms, who is a lot nicer, is a lot more considerate. And, they have that moment in the hallway when they walk past each other in school where like she kind of like acknowledges him, like they acknowledge each other in like an almost like I understand sort of way, but they don't really say anything to each other. And so him in his mind, he kind of like took that as sort of like the closest thing to like, I guess not companionship, but just like empathy that he could think of in that moment. And he used that character to like almost justify like maybe not killing himself, because there's that scene where she like looks at her and like goes, "You don't have to go." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "You don't have to go. This doesn't have to end. You can stay." And it kind of like represents that sort of like nature of like him second guessing whether or not he should kill himself.
Yeah.
And like whether or not he doesn't have to go through it when he like has kind of set his mind on this idea. So for me, that was like kind of what it represented.
It's pretty
like,
good. Yeah.
Like you said, it could totally like represent.
No. I mean, well, yeah, both. I mean, I think, but that's you're spot on with this thing. There was a lot of it was a little too heady for me. So while watching it, I dived really more into like, I don't know. I started looking up like metaphysical stuff and like, philosophies, existentialists, and like Nietzsche got brought up a couple times.
Nietzsche.
So I was just trying to figure out. I was like, man, like I feel like he's trying to say a lot more about our reality. Mm-hmm. And it just sounds like, I mean, obviously trying to go through in his own mind about whether or not he should end it. So
yeah, it's just really like the inner machinations of the janitor as a character, and sort of like the thought processes that he has, the regrets that he has in life, the current thoughts that he has, and like how his fantasies sort of like play into his desires and his ultimate outcome, which we can I guess talk about. So do you think, I guess my next question for you is, do you think he went through with it?
Oh, I had a hard time with that. So
it is up for debate, because there's the scene where he's walking behind because like he's in the car, right? He's in his truck.
Yeah, I mean,
and he doesn't start the car, and he like takes all of his clothes off, and you think, oh, he's gonna like die of hypothermia. But then he like looks out the window and he sees the vision of like this animated pig with maggots, which is like touched on earlier in the movie when Jake brings Lucy, I guess for lack of a better name, to the farm, and he tells her about the story about the pig with maggots. So he goes and he follows this animated pig into the school, and this whole time this pig is very like calm, almost sort of like encouraging in like a weirdly parental way. Like
he's just saying I think he was reassuring, just saying, hey, it's not gonna be that bad when it happens.
Like he says something along the lines of like, not everyone wants to be a pig with maggots. Sometimes sometimes that's just your lot in life, or like something like that.
You have to accept it was. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, it's just going to have to accept your fate for what you're dealt, the hand that you're dealt. So don't feel guilty about what you're doing. I mean, it's just, I don't want to get eaten alive by maggots, but it happens.
So then he walks him down the hall, and they like kind of like turn a corner, and the last thing that you hear the pig say to him is, "Let's get you dressed." And then it cuts to this scene where Jesse Plemons is like on stage in like old makeup. It's like weirdly like kind of like surrealist, like pale white wrinkled makeup.
It was so bizarre. I mean, they obviously did bizarre. It for effects,
right? And it like portrays Jesse Plemons as an old person, but it's very exaggerated.
Yeah.
And so he's up there and he's accepting like the Nobel Prize, and he's giving this speech, and everyone in the audience is like people that he knows, but they're all like dressed up and old too, including Lucy, his girlfriend.
Everyone in here's made to look like they're 80. Like they aged with them, but they are of the same. It was weird because they're the high school girls,
right?
They're in it. They're made to look like they're 80, but they still, you can obviously tell they're the high school girls.
And his dad is in the audience, and his mom is like on stage with them, like off to the right, like way far off. And like you see her, and like they're all in the weird makeup too. And then he like gives the speech, and then he like sings this song from Oklahoma, which he references throughout the movie, as being like one of the plays that he knows. He's not a guy who knows a lot about plays. He just knows Oklahoma, and then he lists off like 20 of them.
Yeah.
So then he starts singing this song, and the first time I watched it, I really didn't catch what the song was trying to mean. But the second time watching it, it's kind of like this sort of like what could have been, like what he thinks should have been sort of thing. Kind of like almost reaffirming the dance scene that was at the school earlier in the movie. I guess not super earlier because it was like right before it basically. But that scene to him was like kind of like establishing, like laying all his success on the fact that like he's found somebody to call his own in a way. Because like that's I think what the song is about. I mean, I could be totally off base. This is probably like the part of the movie that I'm like the fuzziest on.
So I was trying to listen to the lyrics of the song. So I was trying to, the pig scene happened, and then this popped up, and I was trying to. That's when I was really like, all right, I'm not exactly sure who the narrator of this was, because I'm pretty. You can go on, but it happened right after it.
Yeah. So then, that scene happens, and then the credits pop up, right? And the credits are the school in the daytime with like the car parked outside covered in snow, and it's the car that Jesse Plemons was driving when he's with his girlfriend. And I didn't like stick around to hear it myself, but I guess towards the end of the movie you can hear like this weird scraping sound, like someone scraping ice off of a car. And you could interpret that as being the janitor who decided not to take his own life, or you could just interpret it as like someone coming along and like scraping ice off of a desolate vehicle. Who knows? It's up for interpretation, much like a lot of elements of this movie. But
it's insane. Yeah, that's and I'll tell you right now, I thought he just offed himself in that the song that Jesse Plemons sang was just essentially maybe like one last kind of thought before he went.
Yeah, because there is like this sort of ominous like beat to it too. Like when the song finishes, it's like that boom.
If you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's pretty much saying like I was trying to figure. I figured that we'd have to look it up, but it turns out that the love of his life was like gone, and he just grew up in a room by himself. you know, and eventually it kind of gets back to that stage where here I am, you know, all alone.
Yeah.
And that's when he looked at her, and she realized that she didn't go through with it with him, Jessie Buckley.
Yeah.
So listening to the song, I was like, oh, I think that it didn't happen, you know, and not talking about it, I'm like, sounds like the guy did it. And that was his last little thought about how he got to that point.
Right.
You know, so, but maybe, you know, I didn't see the car thing, but it also make me wonder why wouldn't it be the truck that he was scraping if that car was
yeah, if it was like the car that they were driving in his fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much a not loose ending, but it's up for interpretation, like I said.
For sure.
But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to touch on? There's a lot going on in this movie. There's a ton of like different themes. There's a ton of different. I mean, I guess the overall arching theme is like a sense of purpose and like the regrets you have.
Yes.
And whether or not you've wasted your life, but they're all different sorts of themes of like, you know, taking care of your parents, like the responsibility that you inherit after your parents age to a certain point, how the cruelness of life, you know, he says that life is hard growing on a farm, or it's like not easy or something like that. It kind of alludes to like the unfairness of certain things.
Yeah.
And of course the surface level like unsurety of a relationship that is still fairly new, and whether or not you want to commit to something that you feel like you know is going to fail, sort of thing. So yeah, there's a decent amount going on.
This whole movie is sprinkled with, I mean, there's a lot of topics of conversation. I mean, you know, kind of how we're formed as children versus I mean, just there's in so many like little quips. They talked about the song about Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yeah, they debated that song, whether or not it was a rape song. They touched on cinema when she turns into that cinema snob as a whole.
Kind of making fun of audience members for, you know, not being. I wish I could remember exactly what she was talking about and how the writer, what he was trying to come across to the point. And I'm pretty sure Kaufman in that little quip was talking about that the film that he wrote, and that people were going to be in this position of not understanding what he was trying to say. So she goes on about that because it's funny too, because that happens, and then when she goes on about that, Jesse Plemons, the only time in the film I really remember him not having any intellect or being able to I don't know, you know,
being able to have a rebuttal.
Yeah. Fight back with what she was saying. And she ran over him, and he seemed like a wimp. But then there's also things too. I mean, there's a bunch of things, you know, that pop in here. I thought, you know, for me the biggest one was just kind of the reality that you perceive versus the reality that you're in, and how each person has their own reality for what they seem to be right and wrong. I mean, it's just started kind of at a baseline level with it.
Yeah.
So that was a heavy one as I was going through with it. Yeah, other than that, I mean, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed watching it, and it makes you think throughout the whole time, you know.
Yeah, I really like the scenes where they're in the car together, just driving through the snow. I think it's not only are those scenes important, you know, story-wise, obviously, but aesthetically, the way they feel, it makes you feel like you're just on the road, just going down late at night, like riding in the back seat with your parents, and you're just watching them talk. And it's weirdly comfortable in a way, but you know, there's a part of it too that's also kind of unsettling because you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this movie. But the way that it's shot and the way that it's lit is so convincing.
Yeah,
like it's really good. I really enjoy those scenes. And then of course the scenes too where they're in the house, and there's like all the different like floral wallpaper, and the lighting changes. Like you notice that like sometimes her shirt changes color. Or like she's wearing a necklace in one scene and then she's not wearing a necklace in the other. I think just like little details like that where like the memories that he has are like slightly changing different aspects of like what he's trying to fantasize about. I think it's really well done.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And then the music too, I thought was good.
Very ominous.
Very ominous, very subtle too, I think. What did you think of What'd you think of Toni Collette's character, the mom?
I'm gonna tell you right now, I didn't like the being on the farm.
You didn't like being on the farm?
No, I just one of the things that they were talking about, going home. How going home is
terrible, terribly lonely.
And I don't agree with that, but just the frozen tundra, the backdrop of winter, being isolated like that, kind of going back. They go talk about the farm animals, talk about the pigs, and I was just like, oh, okay, this is getting a little deep for me. And then you get in there, and the dad's got a bandage on his head. Tony goes, my mom's a little nuts. He gets in there, he's screaming, hello, hello. No one's answering. So we got to that part, and I was just like, I like the dad. The dad's from Harry Potter. I can't remember the guy. Not from Harry Potter, but he's
David Thewlis.
Is that his name?
I think so.
Yeah. I thought he was a little charming, but they both were creepy and rigid. But it makes sense if you're going off the memory that you have of your parents. Like he isn't able to like really fill in their personality.
Yeah.
Especially if you viewed them as cold and callous like that, they probably come off. And I think she even says at a point, they were, your mom was cold. And he goes, what's that mean? She goes, nothing, I didn't mean it. So.
Yeah, like she compares his mom to like being cold like something else. And then they like pause for a moment because like they're laughing at what she said. And then he kind of like lets it sink in. He thinks about it for a second. And then he's like, what does that mean? And then like she like immediately like defends herself.
No, I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry. Or like something like that.
She was very lovely. But I mean, no, I agree. This the whole time I was just like, and to that point, if that's what they were going for, and that was a really good job that they did a really good job with it. I didn't like the farm scene at all. I was just kind of, I liked the cars. Right?
Okay.
The car scenes were pretty cool, and I loved the dialogue that they had, and a lot of the I don't know, things that they were talking about, just touching on different sorts of topics with like a little bit deeper meaning, but they still, but they just couldn't connect, which was kind of funny,
I think a part of that too is like, because it's Charlie Kaufman. He likes to touch on all sorts of different themes in the stuff that he writes. But I think part of it too is the fact that they're fragments of memories.
Yeah.
And that they're just these like things that are trying to barely connect together in the most like cohesive way possible, while also being like fragments of memories of this old dude working in a school. It's like, it's why things start changing all of a sudden in like certain scenes. In one scene she'll be wearing a shirt that's blue, and then the next scene she'll be wearing a shirt that's red, or like how his parents age throughout the whole thing. And I think the farm scene was a good scene to kind of like show that was like kind of where it was and like how it was working. And you might not necessarily catch it the first time, which I think this movie has like high replayability. But
yeah,
I think the farm scene for me anyway was a good display of how that sort of fantasy worked.
No, I agree. I mean, like just thinking about it in my head right now, revisiting it, just going through this, it makes more sense than what I was kind of inferring about the film. So, yeah, I just didn't like, but I mean, it's the same thing though. I didn't, the whole vibe of it, the feel of it, just,
it's certainly weird. That's for sure. But
no, it's not weird. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird,
I feel like it'd be weird to most people. Probably.
Well,
if I showed this to my parents, they'd be like, that was a weird movie, the general audience, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you don't think that they would be, they don't pick up on the subject matter?
Oh, I think my dad would be bored of this movie, probably.
Yeah.
My mom might like it. I don't know. I know she listens to this, so
yeah,
she'll be asking me about it later.
Careful.
She'll be like, "Why do you think?"
Say?
That was my mom impersonation. I can't do it exactly right because my voice is just dying.
Jacked.
It's so gone.
Yeah. So no, but I do agree with that though. I mean, this is definitely heady. It's a thinker, and if you don't have, for me the whole time, if
you're not an intellect, don't watch this movie.
No, that's not. Well, I would say you have to. If you go into some of these films, you have to kind of develop your own thoughts as you're watching, and make it make sense to you. Where a lot of people just like to have the spoon fed to you.
Well, I would just say, if you watch this movie, pay attention. Don't get distracted by anything. Make sure that you have your full attention to what's going on, because you can easily miss something that could be vital or like integral to your interpretation of what's going on. Because, you know, you throw on Transformers and it's like, cool, I can look at my phone for 20 minutes and,
That's true.
And nothing in the plot will change. Whereas like this movie, you look away for a second, like an actual second, you could miss something that you would have otherwise picked up and could relate to back when the movie's done.
I don't know. I would be curious as to see how many people would get it being a memory. Because I agree with you 100%. I mean, I really think that that's a good call. But I'd be interested to see how many people could watch that. That's why I don't know if it's necessarily paying attention or missing anything. Because I feel like the conversations in the cars we talked about was Charlie Kaufman being Kaufman. So that's 40 seconds of filler right there that you could take out. I mean, really, if you get the janitor stuff going on, along with the farmhouse, you'll have bits and pieces of information from the car tied in. I mean, that's what makes a lot of sense. And then you get to the, you know, the school.
Yeah.
So,
I will say the ice cream that they got, the Oreo stuff, it looked so good.
Really?
I really wanted one when they were eating it.
When they were eating it, or when they were sitting in the car and it was melted?
Well, not when it was melting. Like when they first handed it to them.
All right,
like,
I'm just making sure.
Yeah, no, I'm craving like melted warm ice cream.
Hey, you don't have to get defensive about it. I'm only making a joke. All right. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I guess. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with this movie before we wrap things up here? I guess.
Nope. No, that was.
What would you rate it? That's my question.
I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. But, you know, there's different aspects of the film that I think that you like versus what I like. And I don't think I mean, just not really being a writer, or I mean, even maybe picking up on some of that stuff. But I did like how it made me think. And I thought throughout this whole film.
Man, if you think about it, though, it really makes you think, though.
What's that mean?
It means exactly what it means.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely gets your brain churning. Like I said, I mean, there are just certain points where I was kind of just taken out. But the writing was good. Made me think. And there's good dialogue in it. But the farm scene, I didn't really like. The parents, I didn't like. And I don't know. Some of the times just...
Yeah. They're a little exaggerated, but yeah, I think that was kind of the point.
Well, and I'm not a big, like, you know, put it out in the middle of the, you know, of a Michigan winter in the 1950s. Like, go up to Gaylord, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, let's go hang out there for 3 days. I've never been like, I don't know. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't for me. So this one, but obviously they need to have it. I mean, cold and desolate, right? Kind of fits the mood.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of fits the atmosphere of like a fuzzy sort of memory / fantasy sort of thing.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you probably had a higher rating for it?
I'd give this movie a 10 out of 10. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely amazing. I think everyone should check it out. And
so would you go off of that 10 out of 10 for... What would be the
I would go off of it for simply, the story itself, right? How multifaceted it is, how much he was able to incorporate, and how seamless, at least to me, it seemed.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cinematography I thought was beautiful. I thought the acting was great. I thought the score was amazing. There really wasn't much that I had as far as like a complaint. Because everything intrigued me. Everything that happened made me go, I wonder what this relates to. I wonder where this is going in the story and like how this fits in with everything, you know, because I was not really able to guess where things were going. So having that feeling the entire time watching it sort of upped the value of it for me. And I think that's where my high score comes from.
Yeah.
And plus I really like movies that are kind of like surreal, kind of like make you wonder like what's happening with reality and whether or not something is reality. I mean, that's like the kind of story that I like to write too. Is like these sort of like surreal, not sure what's going on situations where reality is just kind of like imploding on itself sort of thing. So personal preference plus appreciation for what the movie did.
Sure. No, that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's kind of,
Yeah.
you know. So we got 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10. You guys check it out. Let us know what you think.
At our scores, it's 17 out of 10. Bam. Super high score. We did it, Mac.
17 out of 20.
So yeah, check out I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's on Netflix if you have it. Hopefully you do. If not,
well, who doesn't have Netflix nowadays, you know?
My parents have it now. They have my login now. So they got it's funny because they got a new DVD player, basically, like a Blu-ray player that supports Netflix so that we could finish watching Squid Game, because we were on vacation in North Carolina and we were just like in the hotel room, like condo or whatever, and we were like, weather kind of sucks outside, what should we watch? And I like at that point I had already watched the show, right? I had watched it on the way down because we were driving. I watched it on the way down to like kill time, and I said, hey, let's check this out. And my parents were like a little hesitant because, you know, it's a Korean TV show, so they would either have to go with dubbed, which I heavily discouraged, right?
Yeah.
Or they would have to go subbed, and my dad was like, I don't want to read subtitles this whole time. And then, you know, next thing you know, we're watching like 3 episodes in a row, and then where we like leave off is where we pick back up when I get Netflix hooked up on their TV. And so like we finished the show that way. But yeah, that's the story about how my parents have Netflix.
I was about to say, do they? You got to have they don't have the smart TV or anything?
No, their TV's kind of old. I mean, it's a flat screen, but they got it.
My parents are the same. I mean,
they got it like 6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I think my parents are the same way. They got their TV maybe 8, 10. Like it has newer applications on there, but they're pretty much whatever. I am pretty darn close, whatever came out at the time of the purchase.
Like so they had Netflix. They had the Netflix application through their TV, like the internet from their TV, but it was such like an outdated format that it no longer like supported on there.
Really?
Like they just could not get Netflix at all anymore.
They couldn't update it or get it.
Nope. The thing was too old, so they had to get a different new sort of thing, which, you know, I'm hoping that they use it again sometime. Like I'm like, hey, here's my Netflix, watch whatever you want on here. And you know, they other than Squid Game, we haven't really used it over there for much.
So they're not like they're not big movies then.
My parents?
Yeah.
They like movies. I think they just like watching movies as an activity. You know, that's something that they don't really think about too much, but they appreciate good movies when they see good movies. And then they also appreciate not good movies when they see when they see them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. They're
not very discriminatory when it comes to that sort of thing, but hey, more power to them. I love you guys.
Shout out to Kyle's parents.
Shout out to my mom and dad. So you have a film pick, my friend. You get to pick the next film that we talk about.
I know, and I'm trying to get the feel for. So we went kind of, I mean, deep and heady this week.
Yes. So if you just want to pick like one movie that like we can just kind of kick our feet up, sort of.
Yeah,
have a back alley chat about. You know, we can definitely do that.
Have some fun with that, or we go double down and make it super heady.
Yeah, we go even more into it. Just more Charlie Kaufman.
Go into primer.
Primer.
Yeah, hop on that one.
I would want Gideon on for that if we talked about Primer. I think
that'll be down the road.
Down the road, okay.
So there is a movie that I watched when I was getting my master's at Ferris. I've watched this, like, it was in the background, and it is directed by S. Craig Zahler.
Ooh,
remember?
Yeah, he did Brawl in Cell Block 99, right? And Dragged Across Concrete.
So he had one before those two.
Oh, I think I know what you're going with. Bone Tomahawk.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh,
I have not seen Bone Tomahawk.
so it's not too crazy, but I do want to check out a good film.
Okay.
You know? And I kind of teased about
That's exciting.
the 2000 stuff, but I love that's Craig Zoller, right? And we both really liked. It wasn't obviously Cell Block was awesome. What was the one after that? We both
Dragged Across Concrete.
Dragged Across Concrete.
That was a good film.
Loved it. That's what. So I'm thinking maybe we'll watch some Bone Tomahawk and maybe talk about one of the two, or just watch Bone and then we can talk about how they all kind of relate, or whatever you want to do. But
yeah, I figured we could talk about that and then like kind of lightly relate it to the other movies.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking too, I think it'd be good to like maybe if we tried to watch the new Wes Anderson movie, The French Dispatch. Maybe if we like try to do that. That could be a good topic of discussion too.
Throw that in there, yeah.
Get a new release, you know.
Yeah. The French Dispatch. Is that coming out to theaters?
Yeah, it's out right now.
Okay.
Gideon went and saw it yesterday.
He's a big Wes Anderson guy, right?
Yeah, he loves Wes Anderson.
Yeah. I like Wes Anderson too. I know a lot of people say that he's like too quirky for him. I think either you fit into his team or you don't.
Yeah, I like most of his movies. There are a few that I'm sort of lukewarm on, but we can get into that when we talk about French Dispatch.
Sure.
So
yeah, Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for picking that. I can't wait to watch. I really like his other two movies that I've seen.
It's gonna be it's of the same vein. So the plots. Did you know what it's about?
Is it a Western?
Yes.
Yeah.
Set back in like the 1890s, I think there's a heist, not a heist out, but there's a outlaw warrant.
Okay.
And I think they go but anyways.
Yeah.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. It's been a while. I got to check it out again. I know that there's some, yeah. So we'll both be fresh to it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Bone Tomahawk is the movie that Mac picked for episode 7 of our podcast. So if you don't want to be spoiled for that when we talk about it, check it out. And also we'll probably be talking about The French Dispatch by Wes Anderson. So watch that before episode 7 comes out. You can find us on YouTube, the Neon Crew Podcast, and also Spotify. We're on Spotify. And
Spot it up.
Spot it up. And then if you could subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, that would be lovely. I would love you forever. I will
like you for always.
I will come over to your house and I'll kiss you, but only if that's okay.
On the cheek.
On the cheek.
No tongue.
Maybe the forehead too.
Really?
If you're lucky.
Okay.
That's right.
I'm just thinking like a priest. You come in there, kick down the door, walk in there, they get on their knees, you just walk up.
You've been blessed, my child.
And then you walk. Yeah.
You've been blessed by Charlie Kaufman.
Deep.
Existential. So yeah. Any parting words, Mac?
No.
McClain?
No. Hey. No. WWTHD.
Yeah. What would Tom Hardy do? I'll tell you what Tom Hardy wouldn't do.
No, stop.
He
won't make Venom 3.
We'll see. All right. Peace out, everybody. Bye-bye.